Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about patience in the mindful, wise way, not in the I've got to be patient kind of way that I remember my grandmother and my mother-in-law doing, where I would literally see them pierce their lips and tighten their jaw. And I'm sure that I've felt that in my body too when I'm trying to be patient with somebody or something that I think should be happening faster than what's actually happening. Um, so again, when we talk about these 9 attitudes of mindfulness, something to keep in mind is that some of them really are words that we hear a lot, like patience. Be patient. Don't judge. Be mindful. Even that's become sort of an admonishment sometimes, and they can feel like empty. They can feel empty, um, and they can feel tight. And what I really want to emphasize as we're going through these is that when we're using these in a mindful, wise manner, and we're using the wisdom of them, so in this case, the wisdom of patience, what we can look for in our body, which will be a touchstone for knowing if we're saying patience in a mindful, open way, or if we're saying be patient, that kind of way. Because when we're using it as a form of wisdom, it should create this sense of spaciousness in our body. It should create a loosening of the throat, a softening of the heart, a softening of the belly, a feeling like, oh, I can be patient. So that might be very different from your felt experience of what patience feels like when you use that or hear that. So let's talk a little bit about what patience means in this context. There's something about human beings where we're constantly wanting to jump from one thing to the we just always want to get to the next thing, as if that thing out there was more important than this thing right here. So we tend to jump in our minds from thing to thing to thing. No matter where I am, I'm thinking about the next thing. And then I get there and I'm thinking about the next thing. And what happens in that is that it's easy to lose ourselves. When we're rushing from place to place, even mentally, it's easy to forget who we are and where we are. And then we're never actually where we are. We never are where we actually are. Which is in a way kind of tremendously sad, right? So when we intentionally cultivate a patient, mindful attitude or a mindfulness attitude of patience, I think what we're trying to get to is that we come to a place where we can allow things to unfold in their own way. And the picture I always have, and maybe you've heard of this, or maybe you tried doing this when you were a child, um, is, watching a butterfly come out of its chrysalis and, watching this whole process take place. And it looks so difficult and it looks so laborious and it takes so long. And there's just so much, it looks like there's so much effort involved. And so it can be really tempting to feel impatient and feel like, well, I know how I can just jump in and I can just fix this. I can just help this situation. And so, and I'm sure you've all heard this too. So there's the child or the even adult. I can see myself doing this. Well, I'll just help a little bit. And then, taking our fingers and gently pulling that chrysalis apart and allowing the butterfly to emerge more easily, feeling like we've just rescued the butterfly. And yet what happens when we do that is that the butterfly hasn't gone through its own birthing process. It hasn't unfolded the way that it needed to unfold, literally unfolding its wings, one and then the other. And the butterfly then doesn't thrive. And sometimes it dies, actually. So there's some wisdom maybe to be thinking about that. Like if you're thinking in your own body as I'm telling that story, and or imagining that you are holding a chrysalis in your own hand, or you're watching it, and just again the movement from within, and the little bits of poking through, and the little bits of tearing apart the chrysalis, and a little bit more poking through. And I mean, oh my gosh, how hard can it be to just, let me just help. And if you can feel what that feels like in your body, that sense of wanting to just make something happen, because it just feels like it would be easier if I could just control it, or we could just control it, or we could just do something. So that's where the wisdom comes in, is feeling that feeling in your body, being able to identify what that sensory experience is like, of wanting to jump in and wanting to get to the next thing, because this thing, whatever it is, it feels like it's taking too long, or it's less important. The process of this thing, it's less important than getting to the destination or the result. So the intentional cultivation of patient wisdom in a mindfulness context is identifying how that feels, inviting ourselves to take a step back, soften the belly, soften the breath, take a breath, and allow things to unfold in their own way, knowing sometimes there's no doing that I need to be doing. It's more knowing that there are certain things in life that can't be hurried. And there are certain things in life that need to unfold in their own way. And so what would happen if we just took our seat, like we do in meditation, and we'll get to that in a second, and took our seat and took a nice deep breath in and exhale, dropped our shoulders, and just allowed things to unfold. It can be profoundly healing, I think, and restorative to recognize that things can't be hurried, and it's not up to us to hurry them. And we can begin with ourselves, just allowing ourselves the space to unfold and to grow and to evolve, if you will. There can be some comfort in that, and it can also be a profound awareness of how we, no matter how old we are, how we grow and we manifest and we birth ourselves over and over again in a way that happens very organically and doesn't need to be forced. It can be met with some acceptance, some patience, some wisdom. And just then taking that even a little bit closer and applying it to our own meditation practice, mindfulness practice, just that patience of, maybe there's a little trust there. We talked about trust last week. The patience that if I do the practice and I show up for myself in formal practice, sitting in meditation, informal practices, reading and developing that wisdom, I may not be more peaceful right away. You might have noticed that. I might still get angry. I still might feel upset about things. But trusting or having the patience to know that by doing these things and showing up for ourselves on some kind of regular way, that we are rewiring our brain to perform in new ways and building new habits. It takes patience. One of the hardest things, I think, is to be patient with things that we really want to be different. It's easy to get into resisting what feels hard or sad, or negative. I'm going to put negative in air quotes there, because hard emotions aren't necessarily negative. They are just what they are. So patience encourages us to sit with what's actually happening in this moment, and not in our minds jumping to what we wish things could be or where we wish things we were in any particular process or other people in our lives. And so that we just sit back, accept, and understand that everything has its own timing. And we can open ourselves up to life and to the processes. And again, this comes with in terms of this being a piece of wisdom rather than some random rule of society that we have to follow, or some moral thing about being patient. Again, I can almost feel my neck tighten up when I say it that way. When we're talking about wisdom, patience, mindfulness, all in that same sentence, we can say the word patience and we can think to ourselves, patience, and then we can feel that openness in our body, and we can feel the softness in our breath or the expansion of our breath. And that's how you'll know that this patience right now is coming from wisdom. And so before we start our actual meditation practice, I'm going to go ahead and read this lovely poem that I found. It's by another really great mindfulness poem. I actually believe she's passed away now. But this is one of my very favorite mindfulness poems. So I'm going to go ahead and share it now as we begin our meditation. And then let that serve as sort of a jumping off place for your contemplation of patience. And then we'll sit in silence for about 10 or 12 minutes, and then we'll come back. All right. So before I begin the poem, go ahead and make sure that you're sitting in a place that feels supported, and where your feet can be grounded somewhere, or you can feel a sense of grounding through your bottom, a sense of groundedness through the bottoms of your feet, or actually your bottom, or whatever is touching the earth or touching another surface, making contact with that sense of gravity, being pulled toward the earth and being supported by the earth. And then once you feel that downward pull of gravity, you can kind of push up against that just a little bit and allow just a tiny bit, very subtly, and allowing the spine to kind of rise up out of the pelvis with just a gentle lengthening. So not strain, but just a gentle lengthening. And then with that lengthening, then that creates a space for the front of the body, for the softness through the breath, softness through the belly. And just taking a moment to explore what kinds of sensations, what's happening in the body, places that are being held, that are tight or cool or warm. And then bringing the awareness to the breathing itself. Breathing in with awareness and exhaling with awareness. And with a sense of patience that each cycle of breath will unfold one breath at a time. And then it's not necessary to try to get 5 breaths down the road. In fact, I don't even know how that would work. So breathing, just like patience, occurs one breath at a time. It unfolds naturally in its own rhythm and its own pace. There's no need to rush it. It's not going to get anywhere to rush our breath. Just resting with the experience of the breath, teaching us how to be patient. Allow life to unfold the way that it needs to, the way that it will, the way that it already is. And here's your poem by Pat Schneider called The Patience of Ordinary Things. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottom of shoes or toes, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and towels drink the wet from the skin of the back. And the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window? allowing each breath to unfold. Inhale and then exhale. Each breath cycle unfolding in its own time, not needing to be rushed or manipulated, hurried. This is patience. And so being patient with yourself and allowing yourself to unfold from this meditative place that you've been at your own pace, unfolding in a natural way, what feels natural to you. Maybe by wiggling fingers or toes or rolling shoulders. That may be slowly opening the eyes if they've been closed to taking a little bit more light in. At your own pace, looking around your room and making some kind of eye contact, visual contact with your surroundings. Be looking down at your body and your feet, and your arms, and your torso, rubbing your face or your shoulders. Sometimes a stretch feels really good here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sure that Amy has a few words of farewell to offer you, and then we won't see each other next week as Denver Public Library and Amy will be hosting the first Friday of the month, and so I will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, everyone, be well, be patient in a wise and spacious way, and I look forward to meeting again. Take care, everyone.